Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. Today's upload is going to be about the why the upcoming pattern will bring fairly snowy conditions to the US and sorry about that. And why it will be just a snowy pattern that will be very beneficial for the snow lovers and ski resorts, but not necessarily good for those people that want spring, especially for the northwestern half of the country. The further southeast and east you go, maybe you'll be seeing more warmer weather, more wetter in terms of rain, not snow. But we'll all get into this in this video. So before we get into this video, I would like to ask you two things. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so by subscribing. It's a red subscribe button, and you could click it, and that just supports my channel. If you'd like to take it one step further, you could click on a Patreon link, which is linked in the description box below. It's like our own little community. We go through, I post there. I try posting them fairly often. Now I have been a little bit more inactive, but if you want to join, you could definitely do so. And it's like our own little community. So right now we're looking at the GFS, and I'm not really going to be looking at any model in particular. So let's just go to the GEFS right away, and let's look at the most recent model run that is fully already is fully data, and the newest one is just coming in, so I won't be looking at that. Let's go to 5-day anomaly, 5-day averages, or 2-meter anomaly, 5-day averages. This basically shows us what's going to happen based off the GEFS ensembles, which is more than, I think, 25 models of the GFS. Of the GFS family, and we see that very chilly conditions. Again, yesterday, a couple days ago, I called it the spring polar vortex. That's what it seems to be. It's going to be very cold, very chilly conditions, and you can see we go through all the way in time. This is already March 13th, still below average for much of the country, and these blue colors basically indicate cold air, and the brighter the blue, or it gets even to purple and pinkish colors, that is more below average. You can see it starts backing off later on, which is good because most people at that point are sick of winter, and most people at this point are already sick of winter. So, this can't stick around forever. But last year we actually did have the below average conditions stick around till around mid-April, and it was ridiculous. But I don't see that, in particularly happening this year. It could happen. I'm not saying it will, or it won't, but I'm also not saying it will happen. We could, at this point, it's still a fairly complicated pattern, but for the next at least 1 to 3 weeks, we're looking at a fairly good chance of above average of or below average temperatures. And if we look at the precip, we see above average overlapping with the below average. So we see a little bit of dry weather across the east, but then we start seeing a little bit more rain. And I'm not buying this completely. This orange is a little bit below average. I think it will be somewhere around actually average, maybe a little bit above average in these areas. I think there will be several large snowstorms that will occur, and this will obviously fall mainly as snow, as the temperatures will be way below average, and the average for this time of the year is already pretty chilly. But when you factor in, negative or below 20 degrees below average to 15 degrees below average, that gives you definitely many places below 32 degrees, cold enough for snow. And if there's enough moisture, the moisture overlaps the cold air, then we are looking at a fairly significant system. So I'm not saying in particular of any system right now, but we could definitely be looking at one later on when we get to around the time of the cold air. So this is the PNA index, the NAO, the WPO, and EPO. So I'll show you all what these mean. But you could see that from now through 11th of March, which is where maybe it starts backing down, the PNA is strongly negative, and doesn't seem to back down at all. So let's see what a PNA negative looks like. This is what a PNA negative looks like. We see cold air across the northwestern 2/3. I think this is a little bit conservative, and I think during this PNA setup, this particular setup with many other factors, the cold air will be a little bit further to the south and east, and it's a little bit warmer by the eastern coast and southeast. That's a negative PNA pattern. So right through this, where you see this white, that's a jet stream, and basically storms take this path as a highway, and they go right through these two air masses, this baroclinic zone between the cold and warm air, and they produce heavy precip events, whether it's severe weather on the warm side, whether it's blizzard on the cold side. They produce a whole array of, cold and snowy, weather to the north, and severe weather and flooding potential to the south. So this is something to monitor. If we go to the NAO indices, we see that it starts off negative for a very short amount of time. We won't even look at that, and it ends up a positive from around March 1st through the 11th of March, which is as far out as this goes. So an NAO positive is a little bit on the not agreeing side with this. This is probably the only piece of evidence that's, a counterclaim to my claim, which will be a snowy and cold pattern. But it's important to show you my the counterclaim to strengthen my own argument, because right now, the NAO doesn't seem to be supported by any models. The effects of the positive, which is a slightly warmer across the central and eastern countries of the United States, but again, it's nothing like remarkably cold or warm. So even if this does occur or does have an impact on it, it will be very minimal, as these yellows are very, just not nothing. They're not like 6 degrees averaging above average. They're maybe zero from 0.1 to all the way to 2.0, which is fairly insignificant. We go to the WPO indices. Maybe a couple of times it dips into the negatives, but generally positive. And a generally positive index looks something like this for February and into March. You could see generally just the west is cold, and this little dip right here is when we could see that little polar vortex approaching our area, or the area of the United States majority. And I think that's when a little bit of the EPO will come in play, and we'll see quite a bit of that cold air spill into the south and east. And again, when we have this cold air over any moisture, we will see snow or some sort of wintry precip. So I think this is a snowy pattern, a cold pattern, and this is supported by the Climate Prediction Center, because if you look at March 2019, this was made in 21st of February, which is not that long ago. You could see they're predicting a fairly cold March for the central country portion of the country, dipping down all the way into the south, and a little bit warmer for the east and maybe extreme parts of the southwest. But generally, very chilly for the country, and you see these little equal chances. The white section, that's basically where the storms will ride and produce the most precip. So around the west and through the Ohio Valley is probably where the storms will ride. And I'll show you the model right now. If we go to a particular model, the GFS, and we look at particular MSLP and precip systems, we see that these storms do track from the west into the northeast. So we have one right here, which will be tracking very far to the south, and potentially with that cold air in place could be producing a little bit of some wintry precip, some light snow, maybe some freezing rain as far south as Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. So we'll definitely have to track that, and that's what I mean, guys. We could be looking at an event, just one event. All it takes is one event with some cold air, which is definitely going to be in place, and we could be looking at a fairly significant snowstorm or disruption, depending on where the exact location of the snow is, because the further north it is, takes more snow for a disruption to occur, while in the south it only takes a couple of inches. And then we see these storms just riding from the west, southwest up into the northeast, and you can see they're fairly significant. I mean, this point is very far out, but usually these storms aren't as big. They're not as big as they are shown right here, but they do create quite a big impact, and we've seen quite a bit of these type of storms this year, where they take a track from the southwest and into the northeast, bringing quite a bit of snow into the upper plains and Midwest. And during the cold polar vortex outbreak, you could see we were seeing mainly systems are just northwest to southeast, and that is because of the high pressure being stuck right here in or moving down into the north central United States. And then basically what it does is spin counterclockwise, spin counterclockwise, and we see that the storms I was a little confused there for a second, but sorry about that. They spin counterclockwise, and they send the snow or any sort of precip on a path like this, and that's why we see this arrangement of precip. You could see coming from the southeast, and only after a while we see that after this high moves over, when it pins this storm down, it starts moving up, and we start seeing the pattern return back to a southwest to northwest flow. So I would also like to quickly go to the 8 to 14 and 6 to 10 day outlook. 6 to 10 day outlook. This will be basically showing you the next 6 to 10 days in terms of temperature. Look at that. Very, very high confidence in it being below average for a majority of the country. I would say 85%, if not more. And then precipitation, they have below average for the Midwest, and a little bit above, or quite a bit above, for California and the West and the Southeast. I'm not too sure if I'm buying this. Typically with the polar vortex, we do see below average conditions with that cold air because of that high pressure. Usually a high pressure means fair weather, and that seems fairly reasonable at this point. But I think there will still be, again, just takes a little bit of precip and cold air, and we could be looking at a major system. So 8 to 14 outlook, you could see still very chilly and above average this time. So this is where maybe we could start seeing big storms, big snows. So maybe not in the immediate future, 6 to 10 days, but in the next up to 15 days, I think we'll start seeing a snowy, fairly active pattern set up. And I just wanted to make this video basically updating you guys about this, showing you what's to come, how's this pattern gonna affect you, affect most people by bringing cold conditions and maybe a disruption of weather. And depending where you live, it will most likely be snow. But if you live further towards the south, it could be snow as well. But if you live in the extreme south, it will most likely just be severe weather. So thank you guys so much for watching. Consider liking the video. Consider subscribing to my channel. Consider becoming a Patreon. Catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya. Bye.